up, y'all? I'm Saniqua.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Nikisha.
And we are your hosts of Coffee and Chat.
Coffee and Chat.
All right, so if you're on here, please share. Let your friends get in the dialogue with us. Bring them in. Share right now. Go follow us on YouTube. Go follow us on Instagram. And like this page if you're watching it. Please, this Facebook page. Get in the dialogue with us.
Right. All right. So, ladies, what's brewing? What's going on? What's happening? There has been a show on Facebook Watch, I think to be exact, and it's called Red Table Talk. It's with Jada Pinkett and her mom and her daughter Willow, and they just released a series or a show topic about sex, and it was quite interesting. I don't know if you ladies had a chance to check it out, but just their view and their thoughts concerning sex and their take on it just was kind of, a little alarming, a little different, for me. But I don't know, did you ladies see the show?
I did. I watched it sometime last week, and I had actually been watching the show because I thought that was something, it was. I liked the topics that they were hitting on. They were hitting on things it's called like body image, and I don't know, just different topics that were relevant to, I feel like, African American women that we don't really talk about in home. But when I watched that episode, I think you said it best. It was alarming. I think I had this preconceived notion of like what it was going to be, because I'm like just kind of putting two and two together from the past shows, and some of the content was just a bit much for me. And just as far as raising your children and what in a sex culture, I would say, but raising them and what the conversation should be about and be like, it was just something that I definitely didn't agree with it at all. From top to bottom, I didn't agree with it, but at the same time, it caused me to have that question, like, well, what is that conversation supposed to be like? Because I think a lot of times we're like, no, wrong. But are we even talking about those conversations in our home with our young women? So that's where I stand at that right now.
Did you get a chance to see it, Keith?
I did not, but I was briefed on it by a few people. And the biggest issue that I saw with it wasn't necessarily the show. The biggest issue was Christians delighting in it and sharing it. And that really caught me off guard. As far as I know, Jada Pinkett and her mother and Willow aren't declaring to be followers of Christ. So I can only expect but so much from them. Right. So I'm not putting this standard on them that they have to, have this holy conversation that's, done the correct way and whatnot. But it does bother me when I see Christians sharing this video and you're basically helping spread this message, because that's the issue. Some of the things I've heard was talked about was one of the biggest alarming things was her grandmother teaching her to masturbate at the age of 9 so that she can please herself and not depend on a man. And I get this whole independent spirit, which is, I shouldn't even say spirit. I mean, this whole independent woman thing.
Yeah, right.
Although I believe there's some real damage even in that, but that's disturbing. Nothing about that is okay for you to expose a child to such things. That caught me all the way.
I think that was definitely one of the things that was like, whoop, whoop, what, like red flag, because just being a Christian, I think Kiki said it so perfectly. We're not expecting people that are not walking with the Lord to have a holy stance. Sinners do what sinners do. And people that are not walking with the Lord have a lifestyle. But when I just think about self-pleasure and self-pleasing and being able to kind of like push a man to the side, like all of those things they're just not biblical. And so we have the feminist movement that is already rising. It's already, anti-man, anything we can do better, all of those different things. And I feel like we just I don't know, I dealt with, masturbation. That's the thing about it. When I was younger, I did masturbate. 9 years old, 5 years old. When I was a kid, I was introduced into that. Was it by my parents or my grandparents? Heck no. I think that I would have been more covered if, by them, if they knew what I was struggling with, but it wasn't something that I was coming out and talking about with my parents, for whatever reason, whatever enemy crept in. So to have an adult actually, and it happens all the time, I guess, when you think about being molested and all those different things, it's just a different way of introducing it to you, but it really stirred something up in me when she said that. My heart was broken for Jada in that moment. I was just like, man, that's so unfortunate, even though she's kind of trumpeting, that lifestyle right now. My heart was broken for her 9-year-old self, and not only her, but even for my own self. So it brought up a lot of conversation in my heart that I want to, jump into dialogue with you guys about tonight.
For me, so I'm a foster parent. I told you ladies that before, and my family has been involved in taking care of foster children for quite some time. I would say 20, if not more years. When children come into the system, or to our homes rather, and they have been introduced to sex very early, it opens up a floodgate for the enemy to cause them to be promiscuous, because they desire that feeling. You know what I mean? They desire that pleasure. There's some of the counselors and caseworkers have come in and been like, well, just tell them to do it in the shower, or different places like that. And there's some type of thought behind that it's okay as long as they're in a private place. The problem is that when they start becoming intimate with other people, they're already opened up to so many things. Pornography, you know what I mean? Like, it just was really, actually, it was just so alarming to see or to hear that a woman who took care of her introduced her to it. A lot of times we look and we think, oh, it's a predator or that sort of thing. And I'm not sure what her grandmother's thought was behind that, but it robs them of some of their innocence. You know what I mean? It's no longer hiding their eyes when they're seeing movies of people kissing and that sort of thing, or when they see it, the innocence is just gone, period. When they are exposed so early to sex, and whether it's self-pleasure or pleasing someone else. So that was the kind of like gut-wrenching thought.
But even with that, something you said was that a lot of times we think it's some type of predator, which we all know is so false too. That most of the time, whether it be masturbation, molestation, it's usually somebody who you are supposed to trust, somebody that you find comfort in, that is abusing, a young person. So that in itself, I guess seeing it like this, kind of like Ashley said, that was kind of a new thing to me. Like, I've never really heard of you teaching, a young child such things. You usually hear it in another context, but at the same time, I guess it's sexual morality. At the end of the day, it's just sexual morality. It all lines up with that.
Wow. I'm over here teary-eyed already. I don't know what we're about to talk about tonight. What we're about to talk about tonight, but when you start talking about innocence of children, and just thinking, like I said, just thinking about my childhood, it's a lot, and it's just so much going on in this world that is defiling young people and that are introducing them into all types of stuff, whether it's murder, sex, drugs, all this stuff at a young age. And the church, I feel like sometimes like this is their only safe place, like we are the church, individual collectively we're the church, and we are to have a standard, and we are to be able to be a safe place, you know, for people to come. And that's even the reason why we have this table talk, you know, that we're doing, so that you can be vulnerable and have a place to just discuss those things as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter. And it's a lot, but it's going on, and it's going on, and I'm like at the place where I no longer just want to have those conversations with just us, you know, because I feel like me and my friends have some really good conversations. We help each other, give each other resources of how we're going to raise our children and all of that. But I'm like, we need to put the camera here and invite people into those conversations, and so that we can be a light even in the body, because I think sometimes we don't know how to address those things. I know we all were raised differently. I don't remember ever having a sex talk within my home. I have a lot of sisters. I don't remember ever talking about that thing, but I know that I was introduced into sex at a very young age, which brings us to our pop-up topic, is sex. We've been talking about the S word, which has been sorry for the past couple of weeks, but we're going to talk about the other S word, sex. So we got a lot of S words. So when y'all thought, you littles. Yeah, we want to talk about sex tonight. And oh man, you know.
Before you jump into that, I wonder if Jada taught her daughter. You know what I mean? Because when your grandmother or someone close to you teaches you something that's supposed to be exciting, or it's good, or it's, you know what I mean? Exactly. You want to pass that on to your child. So I wonder if, and from the look of the show, Jada was like, I mean, not Jada, but Willow was kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
She was like shocked about it. So there was something in her that had to know, like, I probably ain't supposed to be doing this. You know what I mean?
We ain't gonna pass that one down.
For people of God, men or women of God, to try to adopt that thing, and Jada in herself didn't pass it on, although she expressed what had happened and she told her truth. We gotta think, like, we have to stop trying to grab a hold of stuff that's not biblical, that God is not trying to, that's not nothing that he wants us to spread. So that has to be a halt to say, hold on, wait, this woman didn't teach her child. Why am I trying to adopt this
exactly. We can't be trying to be trendy like all the time. We're called a peculiar people,
right?
A peculiar people, or people who stand out, who literally go against the grain. You know, you've been set free to be different, to literally be a light, and not to adapt the culture's ways. But I mean, the Bible tells us to be in the world, but not of it. Meaning that you can't literally reject the people. You can't reject the world that you live in. You have to be able to be around them to even share the gospel. You have to be able to be cordial and different stuff. But that does not mean that you begin to look like them. Like, you've literally been pulled out for a reason, and if you look just like what you came out of, then I'm not sure you came out of.
That's good. That's good.
You know, like,
another thing they were talking about was monogamy, and that was the other big one for me, because Jada is married, and she was asking, you know, them about monogamy, and are they into monogamous, even into, and one thing Willa said, she said, no, that makes her nervous. It doesn't make her want to be, and we know that is one woman, one man together, and, you know, for the rest of your lives in holy matrimony, however. And it was like, no, I don't want to be boxed in. I don't want to just have one person. And so it's just those type of things that as Christians, as women of God, should definitely be red flags and things that we do not pass on to our children. Because there is not only is marriage holy, but it's beautiful. Like marriage, holy matrimony, holiness is very beautiful. A lot of it's like even contradicting when you think about, you know, same-sex attractions and being married and then saying in holy matrimony, because it's not holy, and we don't discuss that, you know. So but that's not holy. It's like how you can be,
like, how are you calling this
bringing
right here
together in holy matrimony?
Right?
It's not.
Or even among the unbeliever, there's a lot of people who are married and they have signed a contract, but they're not in covenant with one another.
And those are things we really don't. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you just don't hear a lot about it, and you know, maybe not even know how to engage in a conversation like that. Heck, I don't know how to engage in a lot of conversations like that. And just to clear it up, I'm not a a same-sex attraction beater. You know, I believe that I'm not a, you know, God hates gay people type of person, because when I was in my sin and in my mess, the Lord loved me when I wanted him to hate me. And so I'm still looking for, you know, right ways to actually engage in those conversations with people that do struggle with that, or people that are in that type of lifestyle, because it is not biblical and it's not of the Lord, and we desire to be with him. We all are seeking for that relationship with the Lord, whether we know it or not. We all are longing for that place in our heart, and we're looking for it in same-sex attraction, in sex before marriage, in alcohol, in drugs, in, you know, all these things that could be idolatrous, all these things, everything we put above God, we're actually looking for him, you know? And so I just wanted to clear that up, because that's not even, you know, what we're trying to go into tonight. But with that, I'm just like, hey,
I think it's important to talk about it. I mean, it was just Pride Week. So it's important to even have that dialogue with that, to make it known, because it really, it does, and I'm not making a defense for a homosexual whatsoever, but it does even bother me as a Christian when I see them in this separate category, as if the person who's fornicating with their boyfriend on Saturday and coming to church on Sunday is not in sexual morality.
You
know, like, this is the exact same thing.
The same,
Everybody need to get saved.
Everybody.
You know, and it's and the reason I even make that clear is because you need to know that the Lord even puts it on a playing field. Like, he's making it known. Now, I do believe that there's an image that is released that is contrary to what God has designed as man and woman, and that makes it more of a visual eyesore. You know, it makes it a visual issue where now my child walking down the street is exposed to a lifestyle that's not of God, you know, and it's literally in our face, and it's just, hey. And another thing that I want to touch on,
come on,
is that at the end of the day, the rainbow is the sign of a promise from God.
Yes.
You will not make me disgusted by a rainbow, and I just want to let people know that right now. No, I will not purchase anything if I know it's attached to the LGBT community, where they will get funding for it or something like that if I purchase it. But at the end of the day, I'm not staying clear of a rainbow because you in your head and already categorized it with homosexuality. That is the promise of God.
I was gonna say, that is so good, because that very thing came up to me while I was driving this weekend through Columbus, and I was like, man, like, for a long time, I started to like push the rainbow aside for maybe about 3 or 4 years. And last year, my husband and I had a conversation, or like we had came out of prayer, and the Lord just really smacked us with this revelation that I hold dear to my heart, as far as, you know, the rainbow and being the sign for homosexuals or the LGBTQ community. But even that, like, the very thing that the enemy used, you know, to try to raise his fist at the Lord through these people, is the very thing that is covering them, because the Lord said when he sees the rainbow, no longer will he pour out his wrath. And I'm like, God, you are so wise, because they could have used a unicorn, they could have used a cloud, they could have used grass, but the fact that they chose a rainbow, the very thing that you're using to try to say, God, look at us, he's looking at it and covering you with his mercy. Covering you with his mercy. And so every time I see the rainbow, like, I mean, of course, Columbus was flooded with rainbows, and just the love of God just flooded my heart. And I'm like, yes, come in my car, because I Uber. And I'm just like, yes, come on in here, you know, because God loves you. Like, his mercy endures forever. And so when I seen that, I'm like, my goodness, yes. I told my husband, I'm about to get me a rainbow and stamp it on my car and say, restoring the beauty of the rainbow. Restoring the purity of the rainbow. Because it's a real thing. You know, so we're like Christians, like, no, that is yours. That belongs to us. You know, it doesn't belong to the enemy. Not that those individuals are the enemy, but it's a wicked agenda from the enemy that they grabbed a hold of. It became an idea in somebody's mind, but I tell you, God, he's smarter. He's smarter
for your good, though. You know what I mean? Like, people just don't. That's crazy. Even who I just was writing down, like, the restoration of the rainbow, because the same thing a couple of years ago, I just was so heartbroken, like, dang, y'all really gonna take the rainbow like that and just go ahead and use it. But then I was really like, for real, y'all? Like, you not think rainbows are beautiful, but y'all gonna use it like that? and literally dropped in my spirit the restoration of the rainbow. You know what I'm saying? And so I was just reminded, and then the Holy Spirit just went ahead and shot.
No, that's good.
Smacked you right on up.
Even with the innocence of a child, like I don't know no child that doesn't look at a rainbow and they're like, and it makes you even like I have a young son, and it makes me question like, oh, he wants this something that got all these rainbowish colors. Like, should I be okay with that? I don't want anybody
somebody
to
gonna think that they're
and
seriously.
I'm just like, nah. The Lord made a rainbow, ain't can't nobody make that arch in the sky.
That's right.
But him, and like,
Hey, won't he do it?
Girl, I just feel like I'm literally every time I look now and I see somebody using their rainbow or something, I'm like, grace of God. Like the Lord.
Cover you. Like, he's like looking at that rainbow. No, for real, looking at that rainbow and his mercy is just pouring out for them. And like, how much more should we? And that's what I'm just thinking about. So this weekend, I was literally smacked with that, as you know, because I don't go out usually around gay pride. I really have been like, oh no, like rainbows, just not one associated with. And God just reminded me of that conversation. So we share that with y'all. But that is, we're gonna restore the rainbow.
Well, I have this question to ask. So maybe I'm asking you only because you have a older daughter. So, and I mean, of course, she has a mother, so she may have had this conversation already, but you also have foster kids. So have you been in a situation where you've had to have a sex talk already?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, because all of us have really young biological children, so I'm like, I still like, I know I'm gonna do it, or not gonna not talk about it, but I'm like, how we gonna,
how we gonna cover this
like,
thing?
I'm still even uncomfortable, and I don't want to be, but
right.
So yes, I mean, well, here's the thing. I remember vividly. We were sitting down at Wendy's. I don't know why. She had to be about 4. And Ty just started the conversation off like, look, you know what I mean? Your body is yours. Your body belongs to you, and you are going to give it to one man. Like, he was very direct and straightforward with her about, he said the Lord told him to speak to her as he would speak to an adult. You know what I mean? Do not try to cover it up, because the thing is that children grow up and they go to school, and they're in a classroom where everybody has their own ideology or thoughts or from their parent about what sex is, or what they learn from the TV or a magazine or the computer or whatever, you know what I mean? So he wanted to be very frank with her, you know what I mean, in the best way that he could. And I was like, what the heck, girl? She's 4 years old. But the enemy creeps in so early. You know what I mean? As soon as he gets an opportunity, he don't care the age. He's striking, you know what I mean? Especially when he done seen like, hold on, wait, that's what they're going to be, and that's what they're, the Lord is calling this being to be. I ain't having it. You're gonna try to throw in all blocks, and a lot of times when your call is great, it starts very early. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, hey, I gotta throw every dart that I can at this child or this person, because I don't want them to reach their potential. I don't want, the things that the Lord has planted inside of them to come to fruition. You know what I mean? And he captures some of them, but I really believe that God is teaching us how to uncover, how to pull that cover off of the enemy very early, to say, this is holiness. This is what we're desiring to do. Promiscuity. He's been very clear with her as best as he could, is that mommy and daddy didn't wait, therefore we have you, but you have to spend your time separate. You know what I mean? And so just about holding her virginity, and not just her virginity, but being a little bit more frank about it and saying, you're going to give your virginity to one man under the covenant of God. Like, I'm serious, one guy.
But like explaining the why.
Exactly, like
just the no.
Exactly, like just don't be this and the third. He's very open with, for a long time she would cover her ears, like, I don't want to hear about my husband. And like she didn't want to talk about it. But maybe like the 3rd grade, we went to her school and she had a drawing, and it said like, her, like, what you want to be when you grow up, and she's talking about she wanted to be married and her husband and just different things like that. You know what I mean? So I took a picture of it and said he was in China at the time, and I told him like those seeds are starting to germinate. You know what I mean? That I want to grow up. I want to be married. I want to be with one person, one man, under the holiness, under a union with with God being the head. As far as the foster kids, they come from every aspect of life. So when you're communicating with them about sexuality, a lot of times I'm not saying God more than that when this book that I read, because of the legal stance, that I'm not trying to force God on them. You know what I mean? But more than anything, children being able to see a union, I think is more powerful than than anything, because they're able to see what it looks like. You know what I mean? Your children are going to be able to see my mother and my father I grew up in a household of love, covered by God. You know what I'm saying? And when they are able to see that and be a part of that, I truly believe that that's when that change, starts to happen. So
that's so good. As you were talking, I was thinking about me, like being careful not to, because of what I went through, not to try to force that on my son, what you don't want them to do, and what is the right way, but not because of what you did wrong, if that makes sense. Well, you don't do this, and no, come from the pure place. Allow yourself to walk through those conversations with yourself and the Lord, so that when you're even talking to them about it, it's not coming from a overprotective, just a place that is not that what caused them even to be like, I want to do this, because I think sometimes we do that, even in African American communities, I feel like we can do that sometimes. Something's not right, so it's like, don't do that, and da-da-da-da. It's like, it doesn't come with an explanation. Yeah. It doesn't come because I said so, and it's really ineffective in a way. So as you were talking, I'm literally taking mental notes,
Can I say that as soon as you said that, I remembered a moment where, I don't think we had a full sex talk, but I literally remember, and this is so sad because this is not even a goal, but I remember my mother telling me the age that she became sexually active, and I just wanted to beat her. Yeah. And that's all. Yeah. There was literally no desire to, even in a worldly sense, a certain person or just a certain, it was just I gotta make it past that age because I'm gonna do better than her.
Right.
What? That's so sad. But when you said that, because I remember her just it was just kind of you don't want to be like me, type thing. And I knew she had me at 19 and stuff like that, but I didn't know how early it had started and stuff. And I just remember just wanting to be one step ahead of her.
Yeah. I can remember it was a conversation, but it was very much so. This is what the Word of God says. Yeah. So hold your virginity until you get married, and that was my goal. I mean, really, that was my goal. Yeah. Bless the Lord. It was my goal.
I didn't make it. I think it was my goal at one point in life, but I didn't make it, unfortunately. And it's funny because go back to the laugh that me and Kiki shared a little bit ago, because Saniqua kind of rephrased her words about giving your virginity away. We were having a conversation and talking about how this thing is I lost my virginity. It's no, you didn't lose it, baby girl. You know exactly where it was. You know where you placed it.
That's right.
And I'm pretty sure, and unless there was a situation where he was unconscious or anything like that, but sometimes you got those things. I didn't lose my virginity. I made a very conscious decision of where it was going,
who was going
to, and if I need to go back to that direction, it was there. And I feel like just those type of wording, yes, we give it away. It's something that we are able to give. It's something that we are able to, when you see your husband, and I was not a virgin when I got married, and it's definitely something that I regretted for a long time. But my husband, he made me feel like, the Virgin Mary, but pregnant with the Holy Ghost. But man, I can just remember, I'm going back to that where when I did marry my husband, I remember when we consummated our marriage, the Lord, he touched my heart with the reality of young women that are giving themselves away before marriage, and I wept in intercession, and found myself in that place, and I just cried out for young girls and young men that were giving themselves away, that did not know the value of who they were. And that's the thing, like, it's something like when you're able to have the most precious jewel, the most precious diamond or pearl, and you say, you know what, I really want to give it to this person. Like, for me, and this is no, shade to my mom. My mom is awesome, but I was just bad. I was off the chain. And I did not know the value of myself, but when I got married, it was that was my choice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I want you to have all of me. And it was just like this little girl, just a really special time to even say I do before the consummation, but just man, I could make this choice, and I really am choosing you, and not the other experiences that I had. So,
or I'm even choosing you for more than just the physical.
Yeah.
It was something that a lady said to me, and she's so powerful. But she was, because you know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to paraphrase, but basically she was saying that giving of your body is so shallow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the physical is really shallow. A lot of times we give the physical because we're not willing to allow somebody into the innermost part of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dang. When she, and it was right before I was about to get married, and I was just like, dang, she really working me up, because I knew it was just something different. I had never been physical with this person, so my mind's not clouded with the reality of oh, it was just good.
Yeah.
It was, I'm not clouded with that. I'm just I actually want everything that he has to offer, his intellect, his, even the way he shows his emotions and different stuff like that. But even in that, it was hard for me still to come to terms with the fact that he wanted all of me, and mostly the emotional and the spiritual and mental part. The sex was just the bonus.
Right.
It was a good bonus, but it was just a bonus.
Right. No, that's real.
But I literally remember this vivid moment of me just crying one time in the bed with my husband. At a time that we was gonna be intimate, but I just ended up he's holding me, and it was the fact that he literally just wanted to cherish me.
Yeah.
And it was he didn't want to grope me and pull at me, and really he just wanted to cherish me. And I remember just weeping in his arms. I had never felt that there was nobody who actually wanted me. Really wanted me, really valued me for everything I was. I didn't even really value me for what I was. Didn't really know what I had to offer. So, he's just been covering me from the beginning for all of that. But I just say that to say that I understand exactly what you're talking about, Ashley. He had to really even show me with my not having, since I gave my virginity away, that at the end of the day, I'm not damaged goods.
Right.
That God has made all things new.
Mm-hmm.
He once would even pray for my hymen to be restored because it was so bad. I had really told myself that I just wasn't really kind of worthy. Yeah. And he was like, if that's what it takes, we'll just pray for this to be restored. It ain't happened, but still, it
was a good prayer.
It was still a good thought. It was a good prayer. It made me think about it, But I definitely, before we got married, really got through that, and I was just
But it was restored spiritually, though. That's the thing about it.
Yes, it was, and he really made it clear that even the Bible says that if a man looks upon a woman in lust, he's already committed adultery. So my husband had to make it clear to me, we all come short of the glory.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's some good stuff.
Restored.
Look, I'm that's some good stuff.
All this restoration.
I know, all this restoration
Yeah.
for real. Because we do. I feel like
we
we as women of God, to be able to talk about that and allow God to hit those places, because I think what I want to say, prior to marriage, you get a lot of don't have sex. Sex is wrong. Sex is wrong. Sex is wrong. Sex is wrong. And then you get married, and it's wait,
have sex.
Well, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? For real, that's how it seems. I'm what I'm saying? Everybody's church is like that, but that's just how it seems. Like, no. And then you get married and nobody's preparing you for the emotional, spiritual involvement that being intimate is, that soul tie. Like, even if you did have sex prior to marriage, nobody's prepping you. And they just like, oh, here's the wedding night, be ready. Like, no, bro, I got all this condemnation. Like, I don't even want to really, even touch you. Like, those are real life issues, that people go through.
I think for me, there was a girl we went to school with, went to Kentucky State with, and people were praying for that sexual drive to go away and that sort of thing, and take it from me, Lord, and I don't want it no more.
I had one of them prayers before.
Somebody's got me together real quick with that.
Right.
She
I was
don't
like,
want to pray that.
That's not what you want to pray. She said, no. She said, that's not what y'all want to pray about. No, you want the Lord to release it in its time.
Yeah.
Because you need it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you need that thing. Don't you take it from me, Lord. You need it. You know what I mean? But reserve it for such a time as this. You know what I mean? In a time in which you are covering before it's time.
Because those pregnancy days might come where you like, Lord, where to go?
Where to drive?
I want it.
I heard, I think it was Bishop Noel Jones, like years ago. There's something that rocked my world. He said in one of his sermons, he's gonna be here this weekend too. But anyway, in one of his sermons, he said, you're gonna be a higher drive this weekend. I was telling my husband, like, I think I want to go hear Bishop Noel Jones. But in one of his sermons years ago, probably 15 years ago, he said, the desire denied proves that you love him more. And I was like,
yeah, that was deep.
The desire denied proves that you love him more. And he said, because God knows that we could go out and do this, that, and the other. He knows that we can do it, we can enjoy it. But when you deny that desire for him, it proves that you love him more than sex. And that changed my whole perception. Like, man, and that's what I was like, was driving me in so many of those tempting times. Like, God, you're better than this. Yeah. You're worth more than a good time that's going to be temporal, because even in marriage, it's still temporary. It's not sin, but it's temporal. So you're more than that. You're more than any other high I can get. And so I started to challenge myself to deny those desires. Don't take them away, because I need it. So when it come up to even, because the desire does come, and that's when you make the choice. Am I going to touch myself or am I not? That's truth be told. That's what a lot of times you're asking yourself, in Christ, out of Christ, whatever. Am I going to do it or not? And so you're denying that and then going to the Lord, and it's literally showing him like, man, like, you can actually make that choice, but you chose not to. So I have little nuggets from years ago that I be holding on to. But the desire denied proves that you love him more.
I like that.
Definitely.
And so it's like we were talking earlier, like, sex is a good thing. It's not bad. It's not
definitely
evil.
not. But let's talk about this though. Ooh, okay, so in marriage though, like the very first time my husband was like, hey, it's the middle of the day. And I was like, this is only supposed to happen at nighttime. Right? Because I had been conditioned to think that when I was sneaking around, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was
nighttime.
Come on.
Exactly. When
Ain't that an open pass?
Classic one, but White Castle and legs, boy.
That's what had to get to the place where I could say, you know what? He desires me. And to really get in a place where I'm like, I'm not in trouble. Like, you know what I'm saying? God is not about to, like, I'm not, it's okay. I definitely remember walking down the next morning of our wedding night, or the next morning we were in the room and we walked down to get breakfast, and I felt like everybody was staring at me. Oh my God!
They know what happened.
No, we did.
Y'all don't even know. Y'all know what happened. Like, oh my God! I was so embarrassed. Like, y'all know.
I came in the hotel with my wedding dress, so I already knew. I was just like, ugh.
I
was like, for real, like a little shame, but at the same time some excitement. I was like,
I was like, y'all gonna know.
Y'all gonna know.
Y'all gonna know what happened. But people don't talk about the sexuality within, having sex within marriage and what that looks like. You know what I mean? We're just kind of thrown out there, like, there you go.
No, seriously.
See what you make of it. See what happens.
No preparation at all.
None. And I'm understanding, you know, that the bedroom, I mean, you don't want to give all the goods about what's happening in the bedroom, and it's sacred and that sort of thing. But literally,
questions.
Nobody's talking about, like, we got questions. You know, what is supposed to be happening here? You know, they just assume, like, oh, y'all got it.
Right.
But there's a lot of people who struggle within that area of what to do, or even, you know, when to do, or if you can deny, or do you have to be available at all times? You know what I mean? Like, those questions really stand out. Before my friend, we spoke, and she was like, I don't want it to feel like a chore. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's a chore. I'm not excited about it anymore, and that sort of thing. And I'm like, you gotta communicate with your husband. You know what I mean? Like, we can't help you. We not in your bedroom. You know what I mean? You gotta have some real life dialogue about, you know, what is to happen, what his expectations are, what is to look like. Am I able, you know, when do we refrain? Do I get to tell you that I'm tired and, you know, just not tonight? Maybe we can pick up another night or another time. Like, what actually does it look like? You know, and I guess every household is going to be different. Yeah. But don't be afraid to have the dialogue. You know what I mean? And even in the downtime. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Miles do a lot of telling us about it.
I had a thought today. Like, I seen some stuff. You know, social media tell you everybody's business. But I just had a thought today.
It ain't tell mine because I don't put my business up there.
Right. If you don't put your business on there. But and we're going to wrap up. But was just thinking today, like, if you got into people's business, then it will probably be a little bit better to help them walk through some things, like just asking questions, you know, and really cultivating a community and a safe place for women and men to talk, to even ask that, like, well, what is appropriate, or what does that look like? And instead of like pointing your finger at everybody that's having sex out of wedlock, because here's the thing about it, like, oh man, me and my husband, we always have cool conversations, but we were talking about sin, and we were talking about how, because my thing was always the person that got pregnant out of wedlock, like, they're no worse than me. Like, they just got caught.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing about it. Like, there was no difference. The pregnancy, right, the pregnancy is not the sin. You know, the sin is, you know, what you were doing. And so to say, like, oh, to point them out and point the finger and all of that stuff, it's ridiculous, because then we're saying that the baby or the pregnancy is the sin, and it's not. It's the result. And so I just say, like, that, to even, instead of always coming at the person who is maybe pregnant out of wedlock, or even having sex before marriage, to sit down and have those conversations about what was her relationship with sex. You know, was she touched when she was a kid? Was she violated? All of those things, even for men, because we just are quick to throw something, you know, throw some personality or stigma on people, and we never talk to them about what their life is like, and that's all they know. So,
and they have to live with the shame of the blessings the Lord gave them. At the end of the day, a child is still an inheritance from God. You know, whether you came the right way or not, He still formed that child, and that child is still a blessing. And I just had to throw that in there to bless all you single mothers that's out there, or women who've had children, or men who had children out of wedlock. That child is still a gift from God, and don't you be ashamed of that child. We're not telling you to continue in sin and you know, having sex outside of marriage, but that child is a beautiful blessing. You know, and Christians, like, don't do that when you find out. I know that broke something off of one of my friends when I told her congratulations when she was pregnant out of wedlock. And I didn't say it as in, like, I'm happy that you got here this way, but it was like, that is still a precious gift that you're holding, and you should celebrate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's the old school church would call people up to the front, you know what I mean, and like tell the church what you did, and you know, that confessing your sins from one to another. But a lot of times they were dragging a young lady, and they weren't bringing the man along with them to say, hold on, wait.
A lot of times they was having sex themselves out of wedlock.
Absolutely. And not being
I'm gonna get in the corner.
No,
that's good. No, it's good. I was
Really,
just
you
like,
know what I
I
mean?
didn't expect that.
Seriously.
No, I know.
People, it is. There is a lot of discussion still around the church sitting women down who are the ones who are carrying the baby, but the man is still directing the choir or on the drums or preaching the word of God or whatever.
Sit them all down. sit along.
But
I mean, because I agree with the sitting down because
Right.
you're setting an example that we're not allowing you, if you're in leadership or different stuff like that, to just act like this just ain't happening.
Yeah.
But like you said, like, no.
It gotta be both sides because she didn't do that on her own.
Right, you and JoJo, come on.
Right.
We are done here.
Yes.
Okay, we love you guys. Hopefully we filled your cup. We gave you what's brewing. We gave you everything tonight. But we love you guys, and this might be a part 2.
Yeah, if you guys have questions or anything that you kind of want us to talk about or touch on or any of that sort of thing, please comment below or
DM.
Get on our direct message.
Love y'all.
Love you guys. Peace.